Tracy Wick, one of our AIM consultants, and does a lot of great work with us. Tracy, why don't you just start with telling the group you did a fantastic job at the leadership conference. You hosted 2 sessions because we had an emergency fill-in, right? So this gave you a great, you had to use some flexibility and come up with an adjacent topic that you didn't come to present on, but however you did it, you got glowing remarks for that. So just tell us a little bit about what you do for AIM and what you're actively doing now up in Central Illinois, up in the Peoria market.
Okay. What I do for AIM, I'm a leadership practitioner. I do facilitation and I do coaching. And what I always introduce myself as is I'm on a mission to have everyone love Sunday nights. And whether that's figuratively, you might work 3 shifts that are not on Sunday, or literally. And so one of the things that I love most is facilitating AIM's courses because it really gives people access to how they can love Sunday nights. What I've been up to is really thinking about, particularly with one of the, I love the poll, by the way, one of the clients in Peoria, is really how can you make things come alive after the training? How can you give what I'd like to say returns at bat of the material? Because the material is wonderful, but it really is, from my point of view, the ability to have it come alive after, and I talk about this in my sessions, after I leave. So that's what I've been doing.
That's fantastic. Tracy, I don't think we have this to show, but I just want to ask you, can you
Sure.
comment on this slide here? It's the turnover trigger slide.
Yeah.
I'd like to get some input on this. It's a great slide, and maybe we can make it available to our listeners. But I studied this a little bit last night, and I've got to use it. It's a great slide to help us understand turnover.
Okay. It's one of my favorite slides. So I use it in both of my sessions. And what I love about it is I talk about people always go to money. People think that money is, the answer. And by the way, what I say is money is a table stake. We all work for money. That's just, let's agree on that. But what triggers people to leave, if you look at data, and I don't care what data source you look at, this is pretty consistent. It's everything else. In the AIM world, we call it the motivation 3.0. All those things that you work for, the advancement, your career, appreciation, being part of a team, you want to be a leader. And so what I've really gotten curious about is how can we help people identify those triggers in advance before the person leaves. And so
Yeah.
these are the top triggers, the basically wants, development, advance, all the things I'm talking about. And I think that if you are able to take a look at this and think about your own company, where are those triggers for your team? I think it really makes a huge difference in how you follow up with your trainings.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm just going to tie into this a conversation we had with Mikey Mack. Mikey is our compensation consultant, and of course, he is focused on compensation. And when people engage Mikey, they're looking at, we think our compensation structure needs some work. We need to tighten it up. Maybe there's something that's out of alignment. And almost every time we're in conversation with him, he's like, look, it's much bigger than comp. You have to have comp, and comp got to be right, but it doesn't have to be the highest paid comp unless you're in some very specific, very tight markets. But even in that scenario, I think Mikey would say, you got to do all the other things right. And I'm just going to read a few of these items, right? Um, you know, the turnover triggers, once development, once advancement, once challenge, once capable leader, which I think maybe you can talk about here in just a minute, once um, opinions valued, once the lead, and you go on down the list. And I mean, none of those have anything to do with financial reward. And of the 13 items, once higher pay is item number 12. That's the first item that comes on the list that is related to pay. So that brings up all the things that we do that aren't pay oriented. Making a
Yep.
basic assumption that pay is already done right. Tell us about some of the things that you do with our AIM members around getting the rest of that formula right, around those items we just read off?
Yep. So first of all, let's start with engagement. So engagement, I'm a huge fan of engagement surveys. I know whether you do them yearly, you do them quarterly. I know there's some folks that do pulse surveys, whatever, do the engagement surveys. And also, the other thing that I think about with engagement is while they're fantastic, they give you the symptoms, if you will, they kind of give you at a high level these turnover triggers, whether people are looking for more advancement or whether they want to leave, they want more challenge in their work. And then the next thing you want to think about is how do you then take that data and make it personal and take it down to the level where people can use it in their day-to-day. And what I like to say is you're just one conversation away from being able to put these things into action for you. And so the first thing is, of course, using your engagement and then thinking about your trainings. Where do you want to send folks? And then once you've sent them to training, then focus on thinking about the coaching and how you can bring this, which I love this slide, feedback, coaching, all of that to make it come alive on the day-to-day, because really the rubber meets the road with people leaving the sessions and their ability to put it into work.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and take a look at our survey results this far. Nick, if you can pull that up. And Tracy, maybe you can just comment on this. Any thoughts that come to mind when you see these results? Anything that surprises you? Any thoughts that come to mind?
Well, first of all, I'm thrilled by them because it looks like most people are doing some aspect of follow-up, which is essential. So
Yeah.
continuing education is key. The key is to take, again, the engagement data, think about a roadmap about the trainings that you're offering, and then the feedback and the self-reflection being so high along with coaching and mentoring is fantastic. Because I think, I'll share a story of my own journey on this. When I was internal, when I was an HR talent leader myself, part of my job was to roll out our employee engagement survey. And we would do the action sessions, and I loved it. It was the best part of my job. But inevitably, someone would look at me, one of the managers, and say, yeah, but how do I use this? How do I do something with this in my day-to-day? And so I've really taken on cracking the code about that. And what I see in this data is so have the members from the point of view of looking at feedback, taking the, just some questions that they can ask their teams. The coaching and mentoring can be very informal, all the way up to some of the work that we're doing in Peoria, which is quite formal. So wherever, it's really about meeting your employees with what they're looking for.
Yeah. Hey, we have a comment here in our chat line that just says, really, it's how do I get managers to take the time post-training to marinate the new learnings? And I think that's a great question that really talks a little bit about what you're doing now as a best practice, what I would recommend every employer does, but I know not everyone can. But maybe you can take a shot at cracking that question and tell us a little bit about what you're doing in Peoria.
Yeah, so what I'm doing in Peoria is I'm on site as a job coach for all three shifts, first, second, and third. There you see me, okay? And we actually go to the
I
supervisors.
particularly like that hard hat. That is a really good look for you. That's a great look.
And
And
Tracy,
the vest? Are you sure
Tracy,
you're not a crossing guard?
I love that picture. I sent it to my family. I'm glad you like it too. I'm such a fashionista in my hat.
Yeah.
Tracy, if you're on first, second, and third shift, when are you sleeping?
Yeah. Well, I don't. It's just a couple times a month. I know.
All right.
So you don't want to talk to me the day after I've done that, okay? Because I'm a little loopy. I will admit. Okay. But yeah, we go and I'm there these three shifts. And so the answer to the question, how you make it like get your managers, which we have done, by the way, here at Liberty, is you give them really simple things to do. What I say, you make it consumable. Okay. So what we've done is we've created little, basically we focus. Okay. But before I went there, they all did the supervisory training. So I took some of the material from the supervisory training. And when I show up, we focus on it and I give them one or two things to do, one or two questions to ask. Like, for example, what are you hoping to learn? Tell me about a highlight of your experience. Tell me about a low light. What can we do to make projects more effective? You give them really simple questions to ask. And what I have found, and then you give them the opportunity to practice in a safe way, meaning, they practice with me before they go back to their teams. And you find that the effectiveness, if you think about any sports that anyone's ever done, you need practice. You need turns at the, swinging the bat or running the plays. And so this is how you close the gap. And what you have to do is you have to give it to your managers in bite-sized pieces. Because otherwise, if they take a step back, it can seem overwhelming when you think about putting an action plan together. But if you just make it one step in front of what I say is the breadcrumbs, they're more than willing. In fact, they want it because they're a little nervous about pursuing it on their own.
Now, is that, before we get off the practice, I mean, I have seen Bert on camera sometimes before the show and no one's looking, and he's practicing his lines and he's going, "You can't handle the truth. You can't handle the truth." And he's really practicing his lines. But anyway, back to practice for a minute. How is that received, right? So I'm thinking you got men and women who are working. In your case, you're working in a pretty heavy manufacturing process. It's a union environment. And here you are practicing with supervisors and managers how to be better. How do they receive that?
Yeah. Well, at first it was, okay, who are you? I had to, we had to win over their credibility. And why are you here on third shift? Okay. And yes. Okay. And then once they saw the effectiveness, again, the win of just taking one question or one thing to do differently in their coaching with their team, now it's fantastic. I mean, our numbers have really, the turnover is down, there's safety metrics. I mean, we really work again with the management team to understand what are their goals and help the team forward them through our coaching. So it's been received very well. And when I'm not showing up, meaning like we get busy or there's, they're like, "Hey, I've been missing you." And we even got a shout out in their employee engagement survey about the impact that we've made.
Fantastic. I mean, that's a great result. And I do subscribe to that. It does take practice, right? This is a skill that you have to learn. Some people have more natural ability than other. However, practice is something that I know I have to practice at, my leadership skills from time to time in different areas where I know I have weaknesses, and I do practice. We practice when we present. We practice when we're going to, be in front of an audience. Bert's practicing, his platform skills and trial all the time with "You can't handle the truth." But our supervisors and managers are where the rubber meets the road for most of us when it comes to culture. And so seeing the work that you're doing there is fantastic.
Thank you once again for tuning in to This Week at Work. If you enjoy the show, please share it with your colleagues. Forward our invites. Share the link, aimea.org/This Week at Work, or follow or subscribe wherever you get your news and entertainment, like LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're everywhere you are. And you can be part of the show. Send your questions and comments anytime to info@thisweek.work. We'll see you next week, 7:30 a.m. Central Time, when we discuss what's happening this week at work.